BYU knows their bowl opponent. They know where they'll be playing in the postseason. They also know their head coach is going to be around for the long term. All topics we will cover today ahead with Connor Pay.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. And as always, thank you to all of you who are everydayers right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get started today at FanDuel.com, and if your first $5 bet hits, get $150 in bonus bets courtesy of FanDuel. Get started today at FanDuel.com. All right, please welcome in now a good friend of the podcast, as always, back after a week's hiatus. I was on vacation, but Connor Pay back on the podcast. And Mr. Pay, you're going to San Antonio. I'm going to ask you the oft question that gets asked of everybody going to San Antonio. Have you ever been to the Alamo?
I have.
Okay.
I have. Yep. I participated in some Army All-American events in high school in the Alamo Dome. So
okay, so you've played in the facility you're playing in. That's crazy. So you're going to play a high school all-star game, which is probably the last game you played of your high school career in the Alamo Dome, and now it comes full circle as your final collegiate game will be in the same venue, it looks like.
Yeah, I was just there for the combine.
Oh, okay.
Not the game, so.
Okay. Well, very cool all the same, and that's obviously a big deal. I guess we'll start there. Give me your overall sentiment. I know that you and your teammates were disappointed missing out on the Big 12 title game. I think Cougar Nation was disappointed as well. A number of Cougar fans still made the trip to Dallas because they had essentially locked themselves into going regardless. But give me your sentiment. As you guys know, you're facing off against a fellow Big 12 member, but a high-powered team in the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah, no, I mean, You can't be ungrateful. This time last year, we were sitting on our cans, with nothing going on, and so your chance to play football in college is limited, and it's a short time period. So these extra practices, one extra game, you got to cherish those moments because they're my last, in a BYU uniform, and so obviously really excited to get to do that, and obviously, of course, there was some disappointment with. Just knowing you are one win away, and just, how those games against Kansas and Arizona State went, and, you run it over a million times in your head, all the things that you could have done better or what happened. And, and then just kind of the funky tiebreaker to not get in either. And, but at the end of the day, we didn't do what we were supposed to do to get in. And, obviously we wanted to be there. I'm sure the conference wanted us to be there, because tickets were worth about $5 after they found out that we weren't playing. And yeah, nobody went to it, which was kind of, as a Big 12 member, kind of sad to see, a little bit that,
sure.
There was like only maybe half that place was filled. And, and I'm sure BYU fans would have sold that place out. So, obviously disappointed that we didn't give ourselves the chance to play in that game and the fans to come watch it. But, you have to, you have to be grateful for the time you do have. And that's one more bowl game. And, Colorado, great opponent, brings a lot of eyes, obviously some really high powered players. This will probably be, based on the views they've gotten this year, this is probably going to be the most viewed bowl game outside of maybe the national championship. And so, it's going to be a lot of eyes on BYU football. So it's a really good chance for us to go and show the nation what we're about.
Now, you talk about having to kind of stomach the disappointment of those losses. And really the way I look at it, Connor, is this season essentially came down to 3 plays. You have an interception in the end zone on that ill-fated fade route that Jake tossed up that got intercepted. You have a quick kick from Jalen Daniels, who goes off the helmet of Evan Johnson that gets recovered by Kansas. And then, quite frankly, a missed touchdown throw by Jake Rutzloff to JoJo Phillips against ASU. Any one of those 3 plays, I feel like don't happen. You're playing in that game down there in Dallas. But that comes down to, we've talked about this, how games tip on 3-4 plays in any given game. Those seem to be the difference. And you guys came up just agonizingly short, really, on 3 key plays.
Yeah. It's, I don't think of it that way.
Okay.
I think it doesn't come down to one play or one situation. Obviously, having one of those plays go our way would make a big difference. But if we had played a little bit better on the 30 plays before that, we would have never been in that situation to begin with. And so that's kind of the way I think about it. It's really easy to get captivated on one or two specific plays or one or two mistakes you made in the game, but you got to look at the whole picture. Well, if this drive would have gone a little better, or we'd finished with touchdown instead of a field goal here, then the game would have been very different.
Now, there's a question that came in already, and we're going to get to plenty more of these as the podcast rolls on. But Bryce asked this question. I think it goes right in line with what we've been talking about here. It says, what is Connor? I'm going to extend it out to the entire team. What do you guys use to motivate you for the Alamo Bowl? Is it the fact that you guys missed out on that Big 12 title game and you want to finish the season the right way? What's the motivation factor here for the team?
I think the motivation is you get to play one more game together, right? Especially for the seniors. This is it. We're doing we're doing a lot of lasts for us right now. I have 3 more weeks of practicing at BYU, 3 more weeks where my locker's in that student athlete building and at that stadium, and so it's how do you want to be remembered, and do you want to be remembered as that team that, oh man, they didn't quite make it to the championship game. No, they were 2 games short, and then they gave up and went and crapped the bed in their bowl game too? Or do you want to be remembered as a team who responded to that and went out and closed the season the right way and finished with 11 wins? Which is 11 wins is hard to do. And so I think that's, at least for the seniors, there's a legacy that comes with that. And then just that this is the last time this team is going to be together. So why not have it go out on a high note? And, we're playing a high quality opponent too. There's there's a lot of good players on Colorado's roster, obviously, and it's a chance to go play a great team. And so there's a lot of motivation too. And the eyeballs, how can we use this as, playing well in front of millions of people who are going to watch this bowl game? How will that affect recruiting in the future? How will that springboard the younger guys into next year's offseason? All those things are all motivating factors.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question, but Coach Prime has been very clear that he believes that all of his players are going to play, and that includes a guy like Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, who easily could opt out, and nobody would blame them one bit because they're bona fide top 5 type picks in the NFL draft. Are you expecting all of your teammates that haven't hit the transfer portal already? That obviously is one thing with the portal open, but are you expecting your teammates to show up and represent BYU in that game?
Yeah, I expect everybody to play.
Okay.
As far as I know, nobody's opting out.
Okay, very cool. And like I said, I had like 3 or 4 people ask me that question in our insiders group, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to lay it out there for Connor. And I think I anticipated that answer from you, essentially, of you saying, no, we expect everybody to play, because I think this is the type of bowl game that should be the prerogative. If they're not going to be playoff games, you should get the best opponents you possibly can, pair them up, put them on national TV like this on ABC, and let them go at it. Because you're right, millions upon millions of people are going to tune in because BYU has a huge fan base, and we all know what Deion Sanders in Colorado bring to the table in terms of, you mentioned the eyeballs. So it should be a healthy crowd in the Alamo Dome, but more nationally tuning into that game as well. And I'm looking forward to it. All right. We'll get to more thoughts on that in a moment, but there's a certain guy leading this program, and Connor, you already addressed this earlier this week. Kalani Sitake has got a contract extension. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at fun when it comes to this NFL season. You can tackle all the action with FanDuel, as they are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. It's as simple as that. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything to place those live bets on the NFL all in one place. And the best part is it doesn't have to be just the NFL. If you have other sports you're interested in, bowl season with college football, the NBA, whatever it is, they've got options for you guys. The best part is when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And once again, you'll get started with a $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Really as simple as that. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. They are an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Jake Hatch here. That man across from me digitally is Connor Pay, BYU team captain, gearing up for his final game in a Cougar uniform. But a guy who is going to be on the sidelines for BYU for the foreseeable future is Kalani Sitake, rewarded after, I think justly, a 10-2 record in the regular season this year with what the school is calling a long-term extension. And Connor, you already addressed this earlier this week in media availability, but explain to Locked On Cougars fans and Cougar Nation who may not have heard your answer earlier this week as to why you believe Kalani Sitake is very deserving of this extension.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody deserves it more, and like I said in my media availability, I think it was, it's been long overdue, and but I appreciate him getting it done, even though they dragged their feet on it. Because it helps secure things a little bit for future recruiting classes and all. It ties into all kinds of stuff. I wish they'd be a little more open to how long it is or something like that, because I know it's all private, and I understand BYU wants to be private with the money and all that just because they're a private institution. They can do it that way. That's totally fine. But I would, from a recruiting perspective, it would be nice to know how long he's extended for and to when, because I think it would be a positive thing for recruits. But I think and like I said in the media availability, it was there's no one who exudes what BYU represents more than him. And I'll say here the same thing I said there, that all you have to do is spend a few minutes with him to realize, that's who he is deep down. That's his character. And, I'm really glad that they finally got a deal done. They didn't let him slip out of their fingers or something, because I don't know if they'd be able to find a coach anywhere who represents the school that how the administration wants the school to be represented better than him. And to also be paired as a fantastic football coach as well. That's a rare combination. And so really excited about it. I think it brings stability to the future of BYU football, and hopefully they can get some good contracts and extensions done with assistant coaches too, and we can kind of keep the core, of what's made BYU successful this year, and just kind of double down on that culture, because it's Kalani's culture that has made us successful. There's just, more people bought into it, this year. And, I think that this extension kind of lays the foundation to continue that and to have the program to continue to grow in a positive way.
Now, I'll just add to your cover with what you mentioned. When you spend a couple minutes with Kalani, what you get when you spend that time with him one-on-one, he exudes the passion for what BYU football represents, because he talks about it all the time. He grew up a fan of BYU. He was lucky enough to play for BYU and play for the legendary Lavelle Edwards. He talks about it all the time. But you mentioned the fact he wanted nothing more in his coaching journey to be at BYU and to be the head coach of this university. And I think the conventional wisdom is that they tacked on that extension on to what we understand was his deal going through 2027 was the old deal. I would imagine, Connor, that this is, and I have no inside intel on this, I think he's got an extension well into the 2030s. So we're looking at a guy who is going to lead BYU for quite a while. And I know you said it earlier this week, you believe it should be decades to come. I'm right there with you. I think you mentioned Kalani. He epitomizes what BYU is all about, and he has found a nice balance, as you mentioned, of building culture in an era of college football that is all about upheaval. And he's been able to find success on the field, especially at the highest level of football BYU's ever competed at. And that's the other thing about this. I'm going to ask you this question. You guys have played the toughest schedules, I'm talking last year and this year, that BYU's ever faced. 10 Power 5 opponents, 9 conference games at the Power 4 level. Last year, 5-7. You talk about more guys bought in this year. You guys doubled down on the culture. You doubled down on continuity, training harder, getting better. And you're rewarded with a 10-2 season. Where does that come from? Is that as you mentioned, does that come right from the top from Kalani? Did he set the groundwork for that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's his culture that, in the off season, that culture is spearheaded by the head strength coach.
Mhm.
And I've talked about it multiple times where you have two head coaches on your team. You have your head football coach and you have your head strength and conditioning coach. One of them's the head coach for half the year and the other one's the head coach for half the year.
True. It's very true.
And Coach Phyllis and Coach Kalani are very aligned in that culture. Phyllis came right in, took Kalani's culture and ran with it. And said, okay, if that's what we're going to be about, then that's what we're going to be about. And he expected it from everyone. His staff expected it from everyone every single day. And that made a huge difference in how this season went. And I got asked a question on Sports Nation after the Houston game about what advice I'd give to the younger leaders who are going to come up, be the captains next year, the leadership council. And I'll say the same thing here that I said to them on that show, that was, remember what got us to this season. It's easy as a young player when you weren't exactly there for the whole process to be like, oh, we just win 10 games. That's just what we do.
Mhm.
And you don't necessarily look at it from the perspective of, no, this is what happened in January. This is what happened in February. This is what happened in, March, that laid the groundwork for that. And so I just encourage them to remember the details of Kalani's culture, that discipline, the way you attack every single day. And they should use this not going to the playoff, not getting to the conference championship as motivation for next season, because it stung.
Mhm.
It stung the team, pretty hard. And but all that being said, that whole culture and that whole mindset begins and ends with Kalani. Right? If he's not the driving force, then it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
Well, and then the other thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the fact that this can be a springboard. If you guys were to win this game against Colorado, it's a springboard into the offseason. How important is it in your mind that you guys do win that game? As you mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of a turnover here because you, Tyler Batty, guys who have been longtime leaders of this program, you guys are exiting stage right, to use that expression, and new guys have to step to the forefront. How big do you think it would be for guys that you think will be leaders to step up in this game and lead BYU and, like I said, springboard into the next season?
Huge. Give them a chance to, do it for real. Because one of the things that we've really tried to emphasize this year is kind of being more expansive as leaders, and giving everyone on the team the opportunity to lead when it's their situation and their time to do so, and to feel confident speaking up to the team or holding people accountable. And they've been doing that all year. So they need to do that again in this game, in the bowl game, and then to obviously help prepare them to take on a bigger role next year for some of those guys. And so I think this bowl game can kind of be I don't know if dress rehearsal is the right term, but can kind of be it can be a passing of the torch type moment where it's like, okay, let obviously guys like me, Batty, Chase, J-Rob, the captains of the team, we're not going to change anything. We're still going to lead the same way we have been all season, but that does not mean that the guys who are next in line can't do the same thing right alongside us all the way leading up into this bowl game, and they should.
All right. We are going to finish up this edition of the podcast with Connor, with questions from our insiders group. There's some good ones, Connor, and a lot of them relate to, obviously, your final game in a Cougar uniform, the future, stuff about Kalani. We'll delve into all that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Now, Omaha Steaks, one of my favorite things. My mother-in-law has bought me a package from Omaha Steaks for I don't know how many years running now, but the best part is nothing delivers comfort and joy like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, you can score an additional $30 off with our promo code college. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks, have made it easy to deliver on the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks, mouth-watering desserts, they got chicken, they got everything. It feels like once again, you can save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an additional $30 off with promo code college. college. That's 50% off at OMAHA. That's omahasteaks.com, and an additional $30 off with the promo code college. Minimum purchase may apply, but check it out once again. That's omahasteaks.com using the promo code college. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Final stands of this week's podcast. I'm Jake Hatch, once again joined by BYU team captain Connor Pay, as he has done. Connor, you guys, we've been doing this for like a year and a half, and you have been just an absolute stalwart and joining us all the time. So I'm just going to say it right now. We'll see how many times you're able to join us in the lead up to the bowl game, and we'll see what happens with the transition to you going pro and the like. But I just want to say a public thank you to you for doing this as often as you have done it for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, no, it's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Yeah, well, like I said, we'll keep it rolling as long as we can, but that obviously,
yeah, love to.
We'll see what happens. But all right, let's get to these questions here. Now, some good ones coming in, and I'm going to start off just with, we're talking more game specific stuff. And Dirk asked this question, and I think you already kind of addressed it earlier, but he point blank, he says this: how motivated the team? And I don't want to, as he says, a answer from Connor.
How motivated is the team? Is that the question?
Yes.
Very, very.
Okay. I think you already kind of alluded to it earlier, but I wanted to make sure I asked that question for him because I think it was very pointed to what he wanted to ask. All right.
Yeah, we're definitely not oblivious to the weight of this game.
Okay. Now, another question here comes from Jeff, and it says, how does Connor maintain focus knowing that this is his final game as a BYU Cougar?
I think just use it as a motivator. Use it as a way to do things better. You know, it's like, well, okay, I know I have X amount of practices left.
Mm-hmm.
I might as well make them great ones. You know, go do everything as hard as I can, the best that I can. You know, study film a little harder this week for this game. And, you know, I think just using it as a motivator, because I don't think emotionally it's really set in yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it will until I'm walking off that field at the Alamo Dome, realizing I'll never put on a BYU jersey again. You know, I don't know if it'll hit me till then, because emotionally I haven't really felt anything yet. And so, you know, I don't think it's fully hit me yet, but I'm kind of using that there's a time clock to this, you know, just as a motivator, like, okay, I want these last few practices in a BYU uniform to be my best, and my last game in a BYU uniform to be my best.
I'm just going to ask this: how's the foot feeling, by the way?
Great.
Okay.
Great. It feels totally back to normal now.
Good. Okay. That's good to hear. Now, there's a 3-part question here from Travis, and I'm going to hold on to 2 of them because we'll probably have you on in the lead up to the bowl game once again, and those are more game specific questions that he asked. I'm going to ask the third of his 3 questions. I think that this one is what I think most people are interested in. It says this: if Connor were coaching BYU, what approach would he take for recruiting to BYU for the most success in this new NIL and revenue sharing era? Would he be a transfer portal heavy guy or more of a developmental type coach?
Well, I think the development approach is how you build a program.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that has to be the foundation. Getting high school kids that fit your scheme, fit your school culturally. I think that's the foundation, is the development of really good high school players. And then I think you can use the transfer portals to help fill gaps as needed year to year. All right, because your roster is not going to be perfect every single season. You know, there's going to be players who do a lot better than you thought, and there's going to be players that are worse than you thought, unfortunately. And, you know, there may be some voids and some needs, and that's kind of where I would use the transfer portal, kind of more to fill the gaps. But high school recruiting, consistently good recruiting classes, that's in my mind, that's how you build a successful program over many years. The transfer portal, we gave that a whirl, trying to do a whole transfer portal team, and it didn't go very well, because it's difficult to build culture when you're plugging in that many people, and you know, it's hard to build continuity like that. It's not that hard when you plug in 2-3 guys here and there. But when we bring in 28 or so, like we did before 2023, that was hard to have a really cohesive team and a culturally sound team. And so I would say foundation is high school recruiting, transfer portal to fill gaps as needed year to year.
Well, and I think that what Kalani has proven over the last couple of years, you mentioned that 2023, 5-7 this year, 10-2, two very different philosophies with the portal. I think the results speak for themselves, and I think it speaks exactly what you're talking about. Development is the foundation, but then as you mentioned, every so often you're going to have to fill a gap, and that's where the portal fits in, I think, ideally. All right, I'm going to tweak Donovan's question here slightly because I think he means to ask it this way. So I'm going to tweak it slightly. He says, can you ask Connor what he thinks about the matchup with Colorado against a fellow Big 12 foe who obviously is a former Pac-12 school, which the tie-in is because their former Pac-12 school is how you face them. Does it feel weird to be knowing you're playing essentially a conference game in a bowl game?
No, not necessarily. And maybe it's because we haven't been in a conference that long, you know, and so it's not like Colorado's a team we've been playing year in and year out every single year, you know. And so maybe if it was a team where like this is the 5th or 6th time I'm playing them in my career, I'd be like, man, maybe it'd be nice to play somebody different. But you know, never played Colorado before. At least in my time. I don't know when the last time we played Colorado was. And so you know, no, I think you can't go wrong either way, whether we would have gone to the Pop-Tart Bowl or to the Alamo Bowl, both great bowl games. That's one of the benefits of, you know, being in a conference. You're attached to pretty good bowl games most of the time. You know, you're not going to crappy bowl games like you are as an independent. And you know, and so even if we've gotten to match up against the ACC, I guess the Pop-Tart picked, I think, Miami, right? So like we would have played Miami. Like that would have been a great matchup too. And so that's kind of how I feel about it. I think I would feel very differently if it was like a conference team that we've played a bunch. And we just haven't played Colorado yet. So it almost doesn't even feel like a conference game in that sense.
Well, let's just put it this way. The Colorado series, the last time Colorado and BYU got together, 1988. Connor, I was 1 year old. So
yeah.
Getting old, so that should tell you everything. I'm almost 40, and the last time they played, I was 1 year old. That should tell you everything you need to know about how long it's been since these two have gotten together. So obviously that has its own thing. Now, I will ask this. Was there some small party with that Pop-Tarts bowl hoping you could play in that game and eat that pastry?
I mean, yes, obviously, but like when I look at the bowl games in comparison to what we've had, you can't really go wrong.
Sure.
You know, obviously it's like, okay, I'm going to be at this bowl game over Christmas. Would I rather be in Orlando or San Antonio? Like if you're going purely off the location, or Orlando, probably a little bit more appealing. Alamo Bowl, a little bit bigger bowl game though, you know? And so it's like, it's neither here nor there, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I've got like 5 different questions asking about your future with regards to the NFL. So the questions come down to essentially 2 things. So number 1, have you gotten your evaluation this year from the NFL back yet?
No.
Okay. So that's still out there.
I can't remember when that happens, but I know it's sometime in the next couple weeks.
Okay. So that you're still waiting on that. Now, the other part of it is what essentially is the feedback you're getting, whether that's from scouts, agents, your own coaches at BYU, that you need to focus on as you get ready for the next level?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of feedback in terms of specific things like, oh, you need to improve on this, you need to improve on this. You know, it's a lot of scouts will evaluate you and tell you where they think you are. And obviously you don't talk to the scouts as players very often. Mm-hmm. But you know, through my coaches and through agents and other things, they'll let me know where they think I stand. But the hard part with it is so much changes from January to April that you know, it almost doesn't do you any good to kind of dwell on the speculation. Because you know, teams' opinions of me are going to change when they see me test. Their opinions of me are going to change when they interview me, you know, and get to know me and my football knowledge and all that stuff. Like it's all going to change. And so that's kind of what the agents have told me too, is they're recruiting me. You know, it's like, look, this is where scouts are saying you are now. But then at the same time, he's like, look, we've had guys that scouts are like, yep, definitely a free agent, no hire, who have gone in the 4th or 5th round. No. They have guys that are like, hey, I think he's a 3 to 5 rounder who have gone undrafted, you know? And so it's it's there's so much that's up in the air that, it's hard to say right now. All I can do is go put some really good tape out and play the best I can in this bowl game, and then go train and prep for interviews and just put my best foot forward.
All right. Scott asked this: if Connor could pick one team in the NFL to play for, who would it be?
Anybody who's willing to sign me.
There you go. Good
answer. Preferably someone where there isn't state taxes.
Good answer by you all the way around. Good stuff. All right. Okay, I got two more questions here. We'll fit in real quick. Actually, we're gonna go three. Okay, we're gonna go three real quick. So, cool. First one, it's a two-parter here. What is one thing you're most proud of your time at BYU? And then the second part, what is something you might regret from your time in Provo?
Good question. Something I'm proud of is definitely my record against Utah. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I've never lost to that sorry team. And let's see. But I don't know if that's kind of a dumb answer, even though I am very proud of that.
It's a great answer. I think Cougar Nation is rooting you on.
With the exception of 2023, I'm very proud to have been a part of some overall pretty well done and pretty dominant offensive lines.
Okay.
When I think back to 2021 and 2022 and those offensive lines that I had the privilege of being a starter on the year Tyler broke the rushing record, like you take a lot of pride in that as an offensive lineman, being able to run the football like that. And so I don't know, maybe for fun, I'd have to go dig up what our yards per carry has been in my career here, but just being a part of those offensive lines, they were special, really tight knit groups. And then this year's O-line is no different too. And honestly, 2023's was a tight knit group too. We just had some issues going on, but overall, I'm proud of the O-lines that I've been a part of and how we've been able to help the team succeed. As far as regrets goes, my biggest regrets or my biggest regret. I'm assuming this is in a football sense.
Whatever. I think that's open ended. So, however,
because I have some regrets academically, like in terms of the Marriott School, where I wish I could have taken advantage of some of the opportunities, especially in my entrepreneurship program, from a networking perspective. That I just couldn't participate in because of football. I was just too busy. But I don't think that that's what the question's asking. I think I have some regrets a little bit in the sense with how I handled the back half of the 2023 season. Okay. From a leadership perspective, became very more negative, or very much more a negative leader in that sense. And also there were some personal things going on in my own room and things like that. And, we just couldn't seem to get it right. And, some of those frustrations boiled over, screaming, yelling, cussing people out at practice, and just being that type of leader wasn't, probably didn't help very much. And, and I think, and the captains on the team last year too, we kind of all were that way a little bit, where it's just, you kind of get angry. And, so I feel like in a retrospect, in the moment, you feel like, man, I'm just so freaking fired up that I want things to change. Like, this is what I have to do. I have to get in this guy's face and get him going, and or else nothing's going to change. And, but there's better ways to go about it. And there's some individuals who respond really well to that, and there are some individuals who don't. And it's kind of a maturing process of a leader, I guess, I had to go through, that you lead individuals differently. And so I have some regrets with that in 2023 in terms of just how I treated some of my teammates at practice and things. And being a lot more negative than I needed to be in an already negative situation, where they probably could have used some positivity.
All right. In the interest of time, because I know you got to bounce to another thing. Real quick, Matt, does Connor have a favorite Christmas movie that you obviously?
Oh, favorite Christmas movie? Gosh, there's so many good ones.
There are some good ones out there.
I don't know if I could pick just one, but Elf is definitely on that list. Polar Express is definitely on that list. Christmas Vacation is definitely on that list. Yeah, I don't know if I could pick just one, but those are definitely the ones that come to mind.
I'll leave you with this. I've seen 2 of those 3 movies. I'll leave you to guess on which one I haven't seen of that trio. Now, one other one from Matt real quick before we go. Also, because apparently he's a Star Wars fan. What is Connor's favorite Star Wars movie? The people, aka me, need to know.
They're not gonna like me for this answer because it's one of the prequels, and I know OG Star Wars fans have harsh feelings towards the prequels.
Yes.
I don't even count 7 through 9 as a part of the Star Wars series.
Okay.
So let's just completely get rid of those. Those are garbage. George Lucas should have never sold it. I would say Revenge of the Sith was always my favorite growing up.
Okay.
Because I think for multiple reasons, I think it has the best lightsaber battle with Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar. Is that what that place is called?
Yes, you got it.
Duel of the Fates, one of the best soundtrack songs ever written for a movie. Like it was a masterpiece. That last 30 minutes or so, the way it pans from Order 66 between that and the duel of Anakin and Obi-Wan is just, in my mind, it's perfection. And obviously I love all the Star Wars movies. I guess not all of them. I like the Star Wars movies, which means 1 through 6. But Revenge of the Sith for my whole life has always been my favorite.
All right. Well, there you go. All right, that'll do it. So, Connor, thank you as always. We will catch up with you again in the lead up to the bowl game. Talk a little more specifically probably about Colorado. You'll have a better idea, I think, at that point of what you're going up against. We'll dig into that. But as always, thanks for your time and hope you have a great rest of your week, all right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's Connor Pay. I'm Jake Hatch. A big thank you as always to all of you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. And until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. And thank you once again for being everydayers right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.